I'm Jen Romolo. Today we're standing in probably my favorite place in the city, beautiful Humboldt Park. Today we will be meeting with Cooper Forsman, who is the native habitat designer at Christy Farm and Garden, to discuss the importance of native plants. And then after that we'll be headed to Belmont Cragen to meet with Scott Gerwitz, who just won Best Pollinator Garden with the Chicago Bungalow Association. Let's go. Today I'm here with Cooper Forsman, who runs the native plant department at Christy Weber. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
What is your official title at Christy Weber?
So at Christy Weber Farm and Garden, it's the independent garden center here in Chicago. I run the native plant department, and I'm an ecological garden designer. I do habitat gardens, prairie gardens, things like that.
Awesome. I actually met Cooper because I reached out to Christy Weber Farm and Garden, and I had an interest in having a native plant garden at my house, and they connected me with Cooper, who came to my house and helped me out. Cooper, what got you interested in native plants?
Yeah, so I grew up in Appalachia, sort of surrounded by nature and just totally taking it for granted. You know, it was just sort of around me, not a big deal. And I moved to the Midwest, and you know, Chicago, so amazing. But I thought, wow, it's kind of a bummer that the rest of the Midwest is just corn and soy, and doesn't really like have nature in the way that other parts of the country do. But then I started to think, like, why is that? Surely something was here before the corn and the soy and the suburbs. What's the story here? And I started to dig a little deeper, learning about prairies and savannas and these habitat types that are from the Midwest. And I came across this stat that we've destroyed 99.99% of all Illinois prairies. All we have left are these little remnants and little slivers. And that's an incredible story, and that's something I wanted to really dig deeper into and start to learn more about ecology, learn more about native plants, and I just became obsessed. Yeah, I just had to teach myself, essentially.
That's super interesting. So how did you get connected with Christy Weber Farm and Garden, and was the native plant department already in place there, or is that something that you kind of helped create?
So I joined up with the Farm and Garden a few years back, and my big hope was to start a specific native plant department that was separate from the rest of the plant material. I find so often with garden centers, native plants, they're just around. You have to be Googling, you have to be looking at labels, you have to come in with a lot of knowledge. And this is actually a really big barrier for people planting native plants and establishing like high quality habitat gardens. The goal is to make the experience as legible as possible. You can just take stuff that is easily set out, that you know is going to be native, that you know is going to provide pollinator support, that you know is going to provide stormwater infiltration, all of the benefits of native plants. Make it as easy as possible, so you don't have to go hunting with your phone.
Right.
Yeah.
And admittedly, one of the reasons that I wanted to do a native plant garden is because they're perennials, they come back every year, they're low maintenance, and also of course for the ecological benefits. But I am really not the type that's going to sit there and just do all this research. It can get really overwhelming for me. So to be able to just reach out to Christy Weber Farm and Garden, get connected with you, and have you just come to my house, help me figure out what plants should I put where, and to offer like input on the different types of plants. Do I want plants that flower? Do I want plants that are more green? It was helpful for me, and it probably helped me move forward on this project in a way that maybe I would have just kind of continually procrastinated before.
We really want to lower the bar to entry for people wanting to do good things for the ecosystem with native plants. I was never really into gardening before I discovered native plants, because traditional gardening just didn't seem relevant. It seemed like something that you do in isolation that isn't connected to the world around you. And when I discovered that gardening can actually be useful and helpful and supportive, that unlocked a whole nother world for me. Native plants are the most important things that you can do with your space. They are the basis of all life. They're the only things that are turning energy from the sun into food that is then going through the rest of the ecosystem. Usually with like bugs and birds and things that are transferring that energy. So many of our native insects are specialists, so they require native plants. They require usually a certain native plant to complete their life cycles. The poster child for this is monarch butterflies.
Oh, that's so interesting.
The caterpillar of the monarch butterfly, it needs to eat milkweeds in order to complete its life cycle. It protects it from predators. And there are so many things like this. The native plants really, they're the basis of all life.
Yeah, not to get morbid, but growing up, I lived like by a marsh and a prairie, and there were so many butterflies, bees, toads, fireflies, just all these insects and animals that I don't really see that much anymore. And I've noticed that since I've grown my native plant garden at my house, and then also picked just general pollinator plants, my backyard now and my front yard are both really magical. There's birds everywhere, there's butterflies everywhere. I have tons of fireflies. Everybody's saying the fireflies are disappearing. It's just nice to see that again. What are the, would you say, the most important, aside from that, ecological and environmental benefits of planting native plants?
These native plants really are the engines of all life. They're the basis of that ecosystem. They're what's feeding all the native insects that have co-evolved with them. You know, these are relationships that have been built through evolution for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They also provide stormwater infiltration. You've heard of like rain gardens, things like that. They have deep roots and they allow stormwater runoff to soak into the ground like a sponge rather than sheet straight off and go into our combined sewer and stormwater system that we have here in Chicago, which is a big issue.
Yes, Chicago. Just to piggyback on that, as a lot of you know, it is not uncommon for our houses to flood, our basements to flood, and one of the best things that you can do to prevent this is to plant native plants in your backyard, or just plants in general. I think people that have cement pads as their backyards are more likely to have flooding coming into their house. So not only is it beautiful, but it's also beneficial for you and your home.
It also connects you to the history of the land that you live on. This stat that I keep hearing, we've destroyed 99.99% of our prairies in Illinois. We just have these little slivers left.
Yeah, it's awful.
And so it's worth doing what you can to protect that, to be a part of sort of seeding the future by planting native plants on your property, encouraging your neighbor to plant native plants on their property, and their neighbor, and then maybe providing a habitat corridor for pollinators and birds and other insects to be able to move from place to place. We can sort of push back against this sort of fragmentation of these habitats by planting in our own spaces and providing these little stepping stones of habitat.
I think growing up in Illinois, it's easy to find native plants to be boring, less interesting to look at. And when I first started gardening, I don't know, 20 years ago, I would try to pick like the most exotic, the most interesting looking flower that really just like pop. And I still love those flowers and I still like planting them in my planters, but I've really come to love and appreciate the way that native plants look. They're just so wild and free. But I think that may be an impediment to some people who maybe hadn't thought of planting native plants. And I think at the end of the day, the fact that they seem maybe boring to us is just because that's what we grew up with, that's what we've always seen. What do you have to say about that to people who may find native plants to be less exciting visually?
Totally. And I mean, North American native plants, they're just like plants from anywhere else in the globe in terms of what they look like. I think there's definitely some sort of bias towards exoticism or things that we know are from another place because we want to like collect them or acquire them. But you can't tell me that this Silphium isn't incredible. Like this cup plant is awesome. Look at that stem. Look at
Right.
these little cups. These gather water. Goldfinches will take little baths in them. I mean, to my eye, they're gorgeous.
Yeah.
And maybe to some people they look coarse, or the flowers aren't dinner plate size huge. But I think they're incredible looking. And if you really do want more of that wow factor that you get from a lot of these ornamental cultivars, there are cultivars of native plants. People are taking North American native plants and breeding them for larger flowers or for different color flowers. People sometimes call them nativars, like a native cultivar. And those may be less useful for pollinators. The science is still out on that, but it's a nice gateway into native plants that are a little bit more that pop factor. Although I think in the right context, you can get that wow factor with any straight native species.
So what are your top 3 favorite native plants to put in a garden?
Favorites are hard, but these days I've been really into drought tolerant plants. We're experiencing so much heat and drought this summer, and we probably will continue to be experiencing that. So for these really open, sunny, dry, exposed gardens, often like parkways, front yards, things like that. Some of my favorites are Lanceleaf Coreopsis. It's a great early season bloomer. For a grass layer, Side Oats Grama, super drought tolerant, tough as nails native bunch grass. And I would probably say Liatris aspera, the blazing star, the rough blazing star, which is this incredible pollinator magnet, purple, that shoots right up out of the rest of the planting. And those 3 right there, tough as nails, as long as they're in a bright, dry place. Okay.
Do you see any around here of those 3 that you just mentioned?
We're sort of in this little wetland habitat.
Yeah.
So sort of the opposite.
Right.
But I believe there are some in other parts of Humboldt Park. And that's really another important point. With native plants, they're so easy as long as it's right plant, right place.
Right.
As long as you choose the right plant for the environment that you're going to put them in, they will thrive for you. So put these wetland plants in a little ditch or on the side of a little pond, they'll do great.
To what you're saying, Cooper, to be able to put native plants in our parkways and not have to fight as much with the grass that isn't getting watered, that's getting peed on by dogs. It looks beautiful, it's better for the environment, it's easier as a homeowner to maintain. And that's something I actually want to talk to you about, is getting my parkway planted this year or next year probably.
We can do that, yeah. Hashtag kill your lawn.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've killed it, not even trying, so.
Yeah, lawn is just the status quo. It's actually, depending on the metrics that you're using, it's North America's most wasteful irrigated crop.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have ecological benefits. It's basically ecologically sterile. If you can replace lawn or a portion of lawn with native plants, that's an immediate net benefit.
Absolutely.
And these parkways are great opportunities. You know, as a homeowner, you're responsible for the maintenance of the parkway and making sure that it is not in the public way and that it is maintained. But that maintained can be interpreted many ways, and native plants is one of the best ways you can do that.
Yes, I agree. They're cute.
They're Rudbeckia laciniata.
Whoa.
This is also called Sochan. It actually works as a really nice spring green when those fresh leaves come up.
Oh, really? To eat?
To eat, kind of like a little spring green, yeah.
Cooper, what is your favorite native garden that you've designed?
I'm not sure about favorite, but something I've done recently, which I'm really excited about, is a prairie garden for Suncatcher Brewing, which is right next to the shop. It's a new tap room. They brew everything on the premises, but we put together this little drought-tolerant dry prairie on one side of it, and then on the north side we put together more of a robust, like tall grass prairie that takes a little bit more watering, but like really huge, some of those cut plants, silphiums, things like that. But that Suncatcher Prairie, it's going to start looking really awesome.
Awesome.
It's super dense, which is really key. The density of these plants is really what sort of brings it all together.
Cool. And where is that? Where could people find it?
That's on Chicago Avenue, right next to Christy Farm and Garden. I don't know the address, but it's where Chicago and Grand come together.
Okay, got it. Have you noticed that native landscaping has become more popular and kind of more in demand?
Absolutely. This is more than a trend. This is a sea change.
Yeah.
New homeowners, people in my generation, everyone I know in my generation has climate anxiety. They see the habitat destruction. They see the biodiversity collapse happening. They feel like they want to do something about it. And so planting native plants, using native plants in your landscaping is something you can do on an individual level. And it's also something you can do to build community with your neighbors, be part of a larger movement towards supporting biodiversity.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing that, like demand for native plants is increasing every single year.
And I see it more and more out doing my showings. Like more and more homes that I'm showing during work, I'm seeing native plants, or at least the beginning of a native plant garden.
Totally. It connects you to the land that you live on. You have more nature interactions because when you plant these things, stuff just comes to you.
Absolutely. Everyone jokes that my yard is like a Snow White yard because you go back there and there's so many animals in my backyard and I love it.
Totally. Have you trained them to land on your shoulders?
I did actually make friends with a squirrel who will take a peanut from my hand. And for people who are critter averse, just because you do this doesn't mean you're going to have a bunch of animals in your yard, but I put out bird seed. I've got the plants for them. I leave nuts up for the squirrels, so I'm definitely calling them.
The nice thing about the native plants too, save on bird seed. These are nature's original bird feeders.
Yeah, absolutely. What tips would you give to somebody who was looking to start either a native garden in their yard or at least the beginnings of one?
Totally. Some of the most important things are probably right plant, right place. So choosing a plant that's suited to the environment, whether it's full sun or shade, or if it's very dry or very wet. But if you choose the right plant for the right place, it will do good by you. Probably the other thing is density. So especially with these prairie gardens, these plants evolved to be cheek by jowl, full competition. In a native, like a remnant prairie, there can be 40 plants per square foot. No problem, just wedged in there. And that's not necessarily feasible for our gardens, but if you plant densely, I really like 2 plants per square foot to start. They will fill in, they'll provide weed suppression. It's almost like a green mulch. They will support each other so they don't flop everywhere. And that root competition, the stuff that's happening underground, that keeps them, you know, a little shorter and a little more stout, and again, not like spilling into the sidewalk, which is often stuff that we see with native plants that are planted really sparsely in an ocean of wood mulch.
Okay, interesting. Totally. And where can people go to learn more?
We're super lucky in the Chicago region to have so many resources for this type of stuff. You can come to Christy Farm and Garden, where I run the native plant program. Morton Arboretum has really great resources. They do classes. The Chicago Botanic Science Department has incredible resources. The forest preserves, the parks in Chicago, maybe because we've lost so many of our original habitats, we care about conservation and restoration.
And I would say also online, like there's a lot of support in Reddit communities, there's a lot of support in Facebook groups about Chicago gardening. You can find a lot of people with this interest in the city to help you figure out how to design your garden, if you're having any issues with the plants, what those issues might be. There's a lot of support everywhere, but truly I highly recommend contacting Cooper at Christy Farm and Garden. He did an awesome job helping me plan my garden. It looks amazing. And again, I'm really not the person who's gonna like go research, figure out what plants I wanna do, figure out where they need to be, which one needs this amount of light, which one needs that amount of light. I'm not really a DIY girly, so having somebody help me out with it was great. Thank you.
Happy to help. Sometimes you just need that little push to get started.
Cooper, is there anything else you want to say to our viewers about native plants?
In terms of tools and resources, like you said, Reddit, I've honestly learned so much from Instagram in the native plant community there, if you want to use Instagram for good. And honestly, there are apps that are really great for developing your naturalist skills. iNaturalist, I'm always going to rep iNaturalist. It is an app where you can take a photo, there's an algorithm that suggests a species, and then if you get it wrong. It's also social, so a bunch of nerds will tell you that you're wrong.
Well, thank you so much, Cooper. This has been so interesting, so educational, and also just really important information, I think, for everybody to have. I really appreciate you taking time to do this with me today.
Thank you. Happy to help.
Okay, that was our interview with Cooper Forsman of Christy Weber Farm and Garden, and now we're headed to Belmont-Cragen to interview Scott Gerwitz on his garden that just won Best Pollinator Garden for the Chicago Bungalow Awards. Let's go. Alright, and now we're here in Belmont-Cragen with Scott Gerwitz, who is the homeowner and landscaper and extraordinaire of the garden that you see behind us. Thank you for meeting with us today, Scott.
Absolutely. Happy to be talking with you.
So for people that have been following my segments, I'm a huge bungalow fan, and we interviewed the Chicago Bungalow Association a couple segments ago. And one of my favorite things that the Chicago Bungalow Association does is their garden awards. And every year I look forward to, and I vote, in the Chicago Bungalow Association Garden Awards. So I was really excited to be able to interview Scott today to talk to him about his pollinator garden. Scott, how did you get hooked up with the Chicago Bungalow Association?
When I first bought my house about 17 years ago, I found the organization, and they offer a lot of great classes on like how to take care of your brick. They give you a little money for energy efficient appliances. So I joined, and then over the years, then they started the garden competition, which I was very interested in.
Yeah, I love the garden competition.
Yeah.
So were you into gardening and landscaping before, or was this a pandemic project, as you mentioned to me?
This was a pandemic project. I have not gardened at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
my
that's
wife is
so
a gardener,
cool.
so she would grow things in the backyard, flowers, and we would eat out of the backyard. So when I had the idea to like start this garden up here, she was like, "I'll give you advice, but I'm not doing it. This is all you." So so luckily I had her for some advice, but you know, I mean, there's the internet, so you learn a lot by researching and reading about it.
So how did you get started out here? What was the first thing that you did?
So I started with the front parkway. I got rid of the grass. I put in this stone path here, and then I found a nursery up in Wisconsin that sells, I believe they call them root balls.
Oh,
so in the fall, you're planting the roots into the ground, and then then come spring, they start to grow, and it's a slow process. Like the first year, it looked pretty sketchy. But it slowly comes in. So it's been about 5 years now. So it's pretty blooming now.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it looks amazing. How did you decide to focus on pollinators?
I was pretty excited about getting rid of the grass, and then as I started looking into figuring out what to do, I found a house up in Rogers Park that had done a similar thing. So I took a lot of pictures of it, and then tried to figure that out, and then just started researching, discovering how great native gardens are, the pollinators. I have a friend about 6 blocks south of us who grows bees.
Oh.
So he always tells me, he goes, "Yeah, my bees come to your garden."
Really?
So yeah.
How does he know?
Learning, what's that?
How does he know?
I think bees, I don't quote me on this, but I think they'll travel like up to a mile away from where they are.
That's so cool. That's
Yeah.
super interesting. So are all of the plants that you chose native species to this area?
Most of them were. Yeah, like where I bought everything from, they focused primarily on native things to our area. There's a few things, such as these red things. Those are an amaranth. They're not necessarily native. I also grow tulips in the early spring. So when nothing's blooming, you get a little bit of color.
Yeah,
Not really,
I would say tulips are culturally
right,
native
exactly.
to Chicago.
Yeah.
Which pollinators do you see most often in this garden, and did you plant with a particular pollinator in mind?
So mostly we see lots of bees. I always just thought there was like the honeybee and the wasp, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different kinds of bees. We found one bee that came in that I thought it was a hummingbird, but it's actually a bee.
Oh, cool.
So it's like some kind of hybrid. I mean, that's what it is.
Crazy.
So it's mostly bees. We get a lot of butterflies, monarchs, and black swallowtails. But one of the plants I planted was a royal catchfly, which is this plant over here with the little red flowers. That attracts hummingbirds.
If people wanted to plant 3 plants in their garden to get the most pollinators in their garden, which ones would you choose or recommend?
I would think echinacea are a beautiful plant. All the pollinators love them. Blazing stars, actually right here.
Yeah, I love
this little guy here. The bees absolutely love them. They're going to be crawling all over them. And I'm another big fan of bee balm, which is these red ones here.
Cute.
They bloom for quite a while, so they're around for the pollinators to take advantage of.
How would you advise someone who only has a small area to garden, how they can start a pollinator garden?
I think regardless of the size of the plant that you have, pollinators are going to find them. You know, bees are going to smell them out, hopefully butterflies. So it doesn't really matter how much space you're taking up, whether you have a small, you know, just a potted echinacea. Like Home Depot sells, like I did get a couple echinaceas for this from Home Depot, and just a small little thing you could put on your back porch.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if you just have a balcony, you can get a pot and put one plant in.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
what would you say is the biggest benefit of creating a pollinator garden for somebody who might be interested?
I think, well, for me, because I wasn't a gardener, I didn't have the experience of like digging in the ground, which my wife always loved. Like that was just something that kind of like centered her. When, like maybe if she's a little stressed out, she spends time in the garden. So I never really understood that. But in the process of me making this, it kind of like, I don't know, it grounds you, like getting dirts in your fingernails, you know, it's pretty wonderful. And then so like with the benefit I'm getting out of making the garden, but also for the environment, for the nature. Another great thing is they have really deep roots. So when we get a lot of rain, it's not, you know, flooding the yard.
Right. Yeah, I think one thing that is a theme of today's interviews is save the bees and don't let your basement flood.
Absolutely.
How have your neighbors responded to your garden? Do people stop and talk to you about it? Have you inspired other people maybe to do something similar?
Yeah, that's one thing that has also brought me into the community a little more, because I would spend most of my time in the backyard.
Yeah.
No reason to come out here except mow the lawn.
Right.
So in doing the garden, you spend lots of hours out here weeding and planting, and lots of traffic of people coming through. So I meet a lot of the neighbors, and then it's also sometimes like if I'm inside looking out the window, I'll see people walk through, or little kids to like touch, or like, what's that little flower?
Yeah.
And so it's really exciting.
That's very cool. How long did it take your garden to get this mature?
It's been around for, this is its 5th year.
Yeah.
I think by its 3rd year, I felt pretty like, oh, it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, it's still a little sparse, a little space in between, but in the last 2 years, it's really kind of
That's kind of where I'm at with my native garden. We're on the 3rd year now, and now it's like really starting to look actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Like more lush and filled in, like you're saying. It's looking less like little plants just randomly. Well, thank you, Scott. This has been super interesting. Congratulations on your award. And honestly, this is really inspiring me to get my Parkway planted like ASAP. It's something I've been thinking about for a while.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Have a great day.